Guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. This one is, it's not even a fight prediction. Let me just tell you the story, since most of the folks that watch these are American. So Chris Eubank Jr. is gonna fight Benn tonight in England. And that might not be a big fight for the American crowds, but in the English circles, in the British circles, it's a huge fight. It's not a big fight because those guys are good fighters themselves. It's a big fight because of who their dads were. Both were middleweight or super middleweight champions, and the fathers had wars against each other. And I don't have to explain it, just go look it up online. Some of the best fights that you've seen are between Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn, or Simply the Best and the Dark Destroyer. And you know, there's moments where it was so impactful that whenever I hear that Tina Turner song, Simply the Best, the very first vision that comes to my mind is Chris Eubank walking in the ring with all of his pomp and looking at the crowd in his bravado and yelling, or at least doing fake yelling. He used to go like that, and then he used to jump over the ropes and start doing some some boxing moves, some quick punching in there. That's really where Prince Naseem Hamed got it from. Chris Eubank was his predecessor. So those fights were massive. And back in the day, we didn't have cable. You only had cable if you was rich. There was 4 stations on TV: BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4. And then later on down the line, I think in my teenage years, we got Channel 5, and that was like, wow, a 5th channel. But now everybody's got Netflix, everybody's got cable, so there was more eyeballs that were involved. I believe something like 18 million people was watching the fight. I think England's population today is around 60 million. So back in the early 90s, it was even less. So it was safe to say that probably half the country was watching the fight. England was way more popular when it comes to boxing than even what it is in the Americas, if I'm being honest. It carries more weight. So this fight between the sons, it's a big deal. And the reason why I can't make a proper prediction is because of this. Chris Eubank is a heavier guy than what Benn is. So there was a clause in there that he needed to make the weight of 160. He came in overweight yesterday after depleting himself of all kinds of fluids and being in like bags of aluminium, trying to suck all the water out. Wrestlers do this when they're trying to make weight, and other sports do it too. But basically, he got down to 160.05. Then he took another moment and he was able to get down to 160.02. And that guy got fined $500,000 for not making the weight. Now, that's probably something that should have happened to like Ryan Garcia when he fought Devin Haney. But I digress. So then he's got to make the weight, but here's the kicker. And his dad has been kicking up a stink. If you've watched any of the interviews that Chris Eubank Sr. has been doing, he doesn't want the fight to happen. He injured a guy called Michael Watson back in the day, and it's really affected him. And he's also lost another son. I can't remember how his other son died, but he is just really bothered by this because there's a rehydration clause. Usually if you get your weight down, you can rehydrate, and then by the fight, you're probably a good stone. Well, you guys don't use stones. You're like 14 pounds, maybe 16 pounds back over what you weighed in at. Well, there's a clause, a rehydration clause, to where Chris Eubank Jr. cannot be more than 10 pounds over what he had weighed in for the first weigh-in. So that means he's basically going to be completely depleted, and he's not going to have all of the food and all of the fluids that he needs to really have the energy to have this fight. Whereas Benn is coming up in weight, he's going to be full of energy, full of food, and probably full of drugs, because they were supposed to fight before, and it got cancelled because Conor Benn was caught cheating. And he said it was contaminated eggs, which is why if you watch the press conference, Chris Eubank Jr. in the press conference, bam, slapped him in the face with a bunch of eggs and it was dripping down his face. Please look it up if you haven't seen it. So there's such a good build up for this. But the reason why I can't pick a winner is I have done sports most of my life pretty competitively. And I did play professional basketball, and it's not something that you needed to make weight for. But what I do know is when I was lifting really heavy and then I was trying to cut down, being depleted, it just drains you of all energy. So the fight game is much harder, I think, than bodybuilding, and I think it's much harder than basketball. You have to live that life all the time when you're a fighter. And trying to bring your weight all the way down, it's going to destroy him. I mean, your punch resistance is not going to be the same. I've seen it affect other fighters. People made a good point about the fluid that's, around your brain or whatever is depleted. So when guys do this and they're not properly rehydrated, they can have brain injuries happen a lot easier than when they're at their regular fighting weight. So it's kind of dangerous, and that is what Chris Eubank Sr. was saying. And he was saying this fight should not be happening, especially with the rehydration clause, the way it was written. So even if Chris Eubank Jr. loses, I feel like it's going to have an asterisk by it because it's not a real legit loss. But anyway, let me know what you think. I'm going with Chris Eubank Jr. because he's articulate, he sells fights, and I think Conor Benn is an idiot, just like I felt like his dad was kind of slow when it came to the press conferences. Loved his fighting ability, not a good speaker. Chris Eubank Jr. is a good speaker. Chris Eubank Sr. is a good speaker. Leave a comment. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget. And I'll see you in the next one. Comment.